biggest gripe, not gripe, but I don't want to call it a complaint. The biggest thing that boxers would say, like for me, example, like when I see Jake Paul, Logan Paul, even you, or little Craig. I know a lot of the guys because I follow a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You guys tend to fight people in the same space instead of like if you're like, okay, fuck this. I'm not gonna fight, Logan Paul. I'm gonna go fight like legitimate boxers. Meaning, I can't say those guys aren't legitimate boxers, but you're like, hey, I'm gonna fight a guy who's 5-0, who's been boxing and he's won Golden Glove and he's done all that. Like in mixed martial arts, it's like when I had my first amateur fight, I fought a guy who was like 3-0. Next guy was like, 5-1. And then you slowly go up and you're in an amateur league. And then you go pro. My first pro fight was against Brad Pickett. And he was like fucking 7-1 or 7-2. It's always a fucking hard fight every single time, where I feel a lot of people might say, well, these guys aren't fighting. They're just fighting the next YouTuber. They're just fighting another YouTuber. Instead of like, you're in like a stable or a legitimate like WBO. It's like, okay, I'm fighting number 12 in the world. I'm fighting number 8, number 7, number 6, number 5, number 4 to be eventually, a world champion in boxing. Talk to me about that, because
I'm not trying to be a world champion. That isn't my goal. My goal is to build Misfits. I came back into boxing after taking a break after being Logan Paul.
Yep.
I came back to just build this Misfits. I wanted to create a community of fighters who are able to just, on YouTube, especially with the YouTube scene, it was it was all over the place. There was a lot of people who were fighting and not getting paid. There were a lot of people who were, it was just a mess. And I felt like, okay, I felt like I'm going to come through with Misfits and bring in some order. So that is what I wanted to do. I came through, brought in some order. People would fight and people would get paid and people would get notoriety and, get fame from it, because whenever I fight, a lot of people would want to watch, and then obviously they'll look at the undercard, and I was like making sure that people paid attention to the undercard as well, making sure people paid attention to every single fighter, giving every single fighter their own platform, to speak and, show their personality and to, make something of themselves. But for me, I'm not trying to be a world champion. I'm not trying to get a belt. I'm not trying to be this. I'm not for me,
you're trying to have fun.
I'm just having fun. That's it.
Okay.
When it comes to boxing, I'm just having fun. I'm not trying to be the best of the best. I'm not trying to fight Canelo because, bro, I'll get my ass whooped. I know that. I know. I'm not wasting my time trying to fight Canelo. I don't care for that. For me, I'm just here to have fun, enjoy myself, and build the company that I have, and help everyone underneath and bring everyone up. That is my goal with Misfits, and that is my goal in general. I'm just here to enjoy myself. And obviously, I'd love to fight Jake Paul. I'd love to fight and beat Jake Paul. Like, that's a guy that has just been over my head for so long, and I've been showing people that I can beat him. I feel like I'm a level above him, and I need to show. I want to show that, but I feel like they're terrified. They're terrified of wanting to fight me because they know it's a huge risk. It's a huge risk, and if they lose to me, it's done. Like, they are finished. Like, no one will care. That's it. So for them, I feel like they want to try and when Nikisa wants to rinse out the Jake Paul as much as possible, try and squeeze out as much money as they can before they maybe eventually get to the fight with me. And then at that point, win or lose, they don't care. They already made enough money out. That's why they needed the Canelo fight. That was the fight where they go in, they probably know they were going to lose, but it's going to be a spectacle. Everyone's going to watch. Simple as, same as Mike Tyson. They knew they were going to win. They knew it was going to be easy. They just wanted it to be a spectacle. They wanted to make, a shit ton of money, get people being like, oh, it might be close. It's Mike Tyson. No, he's an OAP, bro. He's old. He is not the same Mike Tyson, the same 18-year-old Mike Tyson. Like, he's old. He has no chance. And people were betting that Mike Tyson was going to beat Jake. I was like, you guys are nuts. You guys are crazy. Do you not understand? That's the thing. A lot of people don't understand boxing. Like, don't understand, styles make fights, and, how many factors make a difference in terms of boxing or in terms of fighting in general. So,
It's just fascinating for me and like where I stand, because I wish I look at myself as the purest martial artist. Right. And I when I look at people train, and when I see you in the gym, you're learning, you're doing the work. I see Jake Paul, I see Logan Paul, I see all the guys out there. And I always wanted to ask, like, do you guys care, you know, to take the route of like what I took or what Canelo took and the other guys, right? But then again, you guys were already well off and made a lot of money, so you came into it for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, like, even my friends, they asked, I'm like, hey man, what do you think about, you know, KSI, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, all these guys, you know, knocking out our former, you know, fighters in mixed martial arts. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't know how I feel about it, because I don't know what their end-game goal is, right? Like when I see, you know, they always say they don't fight real boxers. And I'm like, well, do they want to fight a real boxer? Do they want to take that route and fight someone who's, you know, 9-0? There's a guy, I forget the gentleman's name. He's under Floyd Mayweather's promotion. He's a very, very young kid. I've seen him fight multiple times. He was on an undercard of Gervonta Davis. I think it's not Carmelo, but I have to look him up. But he's a young kid, and he's just a fucking brute. And he's just beating the fuck out of grown men that are professional boxers, right? He's not fighting a guy who's like, you know, 5 and 12. He's fighting a guy who's like, okay, maybe 24 and 6. And he's like, I'm like, this is a real motherfucker. Like, you guys need to watch this guy if you want to watch the purist. So I've always wanted to ask that question, like, hey man, like, do you want to do that? And I respect you for saying, like, dude, I know I can't beat Canelo. I know I can't, you know, hang with the best boxers in the world who are like, you know, 32-8 or, you know, 22. You know what I mean? But I mad respect to you for saying that, because there's a lot of people who like to keep that character and be like, nah, I can beat those guys. I'm like, come on, dude. Like for me.
Yeah, but I know there's levels to this.
Yeah,
I know, but I'm at Shoot Fighters. I can see the levels. I literally, like, in that gym, you can see, you know, people who are very, very good and people who are, you know, who are all right, etc. Like, I know where I am, and I know, you know, like, if I find an opponent, I know, okay, this is a risk. This is gonna be tough, etc. And then there's other fights where it's like, okay, this will be less of a risk. Obviously, everyone could, you know, anyone can knock out anyone,
of course,
with the right punch. But like, there's more of a chance of getting knocked out with certain people compared to other people. So like, I know the risk, and I you know, all of that. But like, for me, like I said, you know, you're doing it for fun. I'm doing it for fun, man.
Yeah, and you're building you're building up Misfits as well.
I'm not here, you know, like Jake being like, yeah, I can beat Benavidez, or I can beat Beterbiev or Bivol, all these guys. Like, you know, no, I know what I am, and I know the level I'm at, and I know what to risk, what isn't, and what, you know, what I want to do for the end goal anyway. So the end goal is always just has always been to just build Misfits and then have good fights along the way.
I love that. Like I said, man, I respect you for being open about that, right? Because a lot of people they won't be open about that. Man, why y'all keep coming after us? Why you know, you call Donald Cerrone, you call Tony Ferguson, you call all our, why you coming after MMA guys? Why you go beat up? I mean, why you guys keep coming after us? What's that all about?
Well, I mean, look, for us, it's all about names. It's all about names. Like, big names. That's all we really care about. Like, as long as you're a big name, then yes, okay, you're an opportunity. If I'm fighting a nobody, like, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Why don't you guys fight basketball players and shit? Why don't you stop?
Well, I tried. I was gonna fight a footballer, and he pulled out. An ex-footballer, yeah.